Tonight, a look at what U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder has deemed an urgent public health crisis. A heroin epidemic sweeping the nation and tearing lives apart as it makes its way deep into suburban communities, and no place is immune. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I am Richard French, and thank you so much for joining us this Friday evening, May 16th, for the special presentation. Heroin, it is a silent killer that does not discriminate by age, gender, or socioeconomic status. The highly addictive drug is derived from morphine and is what experts call a downer or depressant. It affects the brain's pleasure systems and disrupts its ability to detect pain. Heroin is a dark brown powder or tar-like substance that can be injected, smoked in a water pipe, marijuana joint, or even cigarette. It can now also be snuffed up the nose. Now, the sudden and tragic death of Oscar award-winning actor Philip Seymour Hoffman, it catapulted the severity of the drug epidemic into the national spotlight. Hoffman was found dead in the bathroom of his West Village apartment back in February. Police say the actor, he had a needle dangling from his arm. 70 bags of the drug that were found in his home. What perhaps is the most frightening of all of this is that law enforcement officials say that now more teens and young adults in the suburbs, they're choosing heroin over marijuana because it's cheaper. And just this week, a student in upstate New York at the State University of New York at Oswego died of a heroin overdose, and two others, they were hospitalized. Now, the scourge of heroin, it is taking over the tri-state area. Drug treatment counselors and rehab centers in New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey all say that most of those seeking help at their facilities are overwhelmingly addicted to heroin. Narcotics officers on the front lines in Westchester, Rockland, and Putnam County say they've arrested more than 100 people on heroin-related charges just since December. And on Staten Island, the statistics are staggering. The amount of heroin seized by police there skyrocketed by more than 300% just from the years 2011 to 2013. Reporter Samantha Liebman, she went to Staten Island where she met a mother and father who lost a son to the drug and why they want everyone to know that heroin killed their boy.
Jonathan Krupe played sports, loved his nieces and nephews, and was even an altar boy.
He was such a lovable kid. I mean, everybody loved him. He had a smile as soon as he walked in the room, everybody just lit up. And, oh, John's here.
But much of that changed in recent years as he became hooked on painkillers and then heroin. Jonathan died from a heroin overdose March 29th at the age of 21. His parents, Barry and Candace Krupe, say he was in several treatment programs and they even kicked him out of the house a few times.
And he tried. And I thought he could do it.
Yeah, we were both hoping.
He was doing it, and the only thing I could say is that he just relapsed.
Unfortunately, stories like Jonathan's are becoming increasingly common here on Staten Island. In 2012, according to the Department of Health, Staten Island had the highest rate of deaths caused by heroin overdose of all the 5 boroughs. Rocco, whose last name we're withholding, is a recovering pill addict, but he was one of many small-time heroin dealers who would buy it in New Jersey and sell it on the island.
It's the price, really. Heroin is a lot cheaper than pills. You're talking about $10 compared to $25. And not a lot of people could afford pills anymore. Yeah. They're also hard to come by because they're cracking down on doctors and all that.
According to Luke Nasta of Camelot Counseling, one of the few long-term treatment centers on the island, increased heroin use is one of the unintended consequences of New York State's I-Stop law. Enacted in 2012, it allows physicians to see whether patients are doctor shopping for painkillers. But Nasta says it usually starts with pills, and on Staten Island, what he calls a blue-collar culture, one of work and reward.
What comes along culturally with that level of working class is the party, think back to what miners, how they suffered on the job in the mines, and then they get their pay, and their wife had better get them before they hit the bar.
And instead of alcohol, the children of those workers are using drugs. And once addicted, the Kruppis say there are few options, since most insurance will only pay for 28 days of inpatient treatment, which experts say is not enough. And while treatment and family support can't always save someone, as in Jonathan Kruppis' case, they believe many people aren't even seeking help because of the stigma.
That's the reason we keep coming in, is because everybody thinks of this kind of addiction as, you know, like some junkie on the street, and it's, you know, they think so low of these people, and meanwhile they're our son, they're somebody else's son and daughter.
For RFL, I'm Samantha Liebman on Staten Island.
Mrs. Kruppis says she did not want the cause of her son's death to be a mystery, so she wrote that he died at home of a heroin overdose in his obituary in the local paper. Many parents, they are taking a stand to speak out about the power and the grip of this addiction after losing a child. Tonight, we are also hearing from Michael Zoll. He spoke out to me early this year about the loss of his son.
From my research, brief research, and you've done more, there's more children getting, and I call them children, they're adults also, dying every day from prescription drugs, heroin, and then we lost in Vietnam. I think there's something like 40,000 kids dying every year from prescription drugs, heroin, and we've got to do something about it. We've spent a lot of money, for example, on AIDS and curing that. We've got to do the same thing with this situation.
Put a human face on your son, because in many ways, kid growing up, I mean, you're from Rockland County. This is not, you know, where people would say, oh, pick the hardest hardscrabble inner city in America. This was your boy. This could be anybody's kid.
He grew up in the suburbs. We lived in the same house for over 40 years. He played baseball, played soccer, was doing fine up until probably high school. And as a parent, you really don't even know what's happening. You think there's something wrong, but you're really not faced with what's happening until it hits you in the face. It's as a lawyer, I say, until it's beyond a reasonable doubt. You always think that, well, he's not feeling good. He grew up in the suburbs. Like, he went to a wonderful high school, a wonderful college, and somehow just got addicted in his high school years and just couldn't kick it. We went through years, literally probably 20 years of rehab, doctors, and his last bout, he was in Delray Beach, which is sort of like the epicenter of rehab. Seemed to be doing very well. He was down there for a year and a half or so going through rehab. He came home, seemed fine. We went away on vacation, and then we get a call while we're on vacation. And you never know how you're going to react when that happens. We were always afraid that someday we might get the call, but we said, no, it's not going to happen to us. But all of a sudden it does, and the bottom drops out, the complete bottom drops out. You don't know. I think my wife and I have handled it better than I thought we could. I think we have to learn to educate the kids. I don't think there is, in my opinion, there is no cure for addiction. If you're addicted, you're going to go through rehab.
And you want people, and I've heard other families who've, and it's not a small struggle. This is, as you said, a decade-long struggle, and it tears at the family. But it's an illness, right? And that's how it should be looked at?
Absolutely. It's an illness.
There's a family out there watching tonight who's got a kid, let's say, in high school, who they're not sure if it's kids being kids or something more. What do you say to them?
I say, if you suspect there's a problem, there is a problem. Don't wait until it's too late. And you have to nip it very, very quickly in the beginning, because once they're addicted onto prescription drugs or heroin or whatever drugs are out there, it's a terrible route. I don't think there is a cure. And eventually it could end up deadly. So you really got to hit it very quickly, early years. I know I had my grandson watching television with me, and there was this advertisement for cigarette smoking with someone lying in bed and disgusting. And he says to me, "Dad, Grandpa, I'll never smoke. That's crazy." Why don't they do that with drugs? All they have is a very mild ad saying, "Don't do drugs." You got to show them dragging out a body bag, and you got to see the parents crying and my grandkids upset about that. It's just not publicized enough to prevent the disease from occurring. Once it occurs, we've got all these routes to supposedly a cure, but they're Band-Aids on the situation.
There is much more ahead as our heroin epidemic special continues, and next we'll hear from a recovering addict who's speaking out about the lure of the drug, and later law enforcement officials. They tell us what tools they have in their arsenal to subdue not only the drug but those chasing the high. It is a brutal truth what they'll lay out. You'll want to hear that. We'll have that and much more straight ahead.